Okay, so is it recording? It's recording.
Okay, great. So hi everyone, I think this is now our 6th Zoom of Consciousness Explorers. This week we want to look at sovereignty, what it is and how we can achieve it and why it's important for us in our day-to-day lives. So for those of you who don't know what sovereignty is and like it a bit more explained, I've written a short teaching in the form of a revocation of unsovereign moments and an invocation to sovereignty. So sit back again and let the energies and the frequencies of these words I've used sort of sink in, and it will help you, for those who don't know, get a better grasp of what it is. I take this time to reflect on the true meaning of sovereignty and recall my unsovereign moments so I may now transmute and transcend them. Through the experience of day-to-day living and through self-examination and exploration, I recognize sovereignty is not the governance of another over me. It is the full heart-mind presence of my I am self manifested fully in this body, taking full responsibility for myself. It is the honouring of myself and acknowledging myself as the sole arbiter of my life's choices. It is self-governance. I use the wisdom of hindsight to see where and when I gradually gave away my free will. For I was born a free-willed sovereign being. It is our absolute legacy and birthright. It is coded in our DNA, carried in our blood. So I use that hindsight now to revoke all the times in my total awareness and unawareness, the system of domination and control imprinted me with its will, not being born into my soul family, the very first injections as a baby, the birth certificate that labelled me as chattel for a system to trade. I revoke all the system's choices for me that weren't in alignment with the true divine source being that I am. I revoke the schooling system that bent me to its will rather than offer me the opportunity to express my full creative self. I revoke the system's patriarchal society indoctrination that takes away the divine feminine and divine masculine choices. I revoke all their choices for me of how I should live, work, exchange energy, love, and exist. For I see beyond their limitations of being endlessly indebted to their corrupt financial system. I revoke all my unsovereign moments when I forgot who I truly am, the fullness that is me. I now recognize all the times I gave my empathy rather than compassion so that I felt drained and empty, where I empowered others at the expense of myself, at times using my core energy, so I was totally depleted. I revoked all martyr parts of me, all zealous interference on another's journey. So I now invite back in those scattered pieces and parts of me, those soul shards I gave away in unknowingness to family members who wanted that piece of me, the parts of me lost to the neediness of others, given freely and without question to their emergencies. I call you all back now, so I may have the complete energy resource that is me. I now stand grounded beneath Grandfather Sun, my feet on Earth Mother, recognizing I have earned the rites of passage through many lifetimes to be here now fully in my heart, in the completeness that is me, accessing the frequency of the songline that I am in the multicolored harmonies of the universal song. I align my multidimensional selves to this I am presence, this hologram, this algorithm that is me, this body bundle of energy and a perfect stream of atomic light. I ground myself to this time-space reality in dominion with Earth Mother, for I am not forged in Roman numeral time. I was not born to adhere to a clock, locking me into regimes and stances of forced forgetting of our true nature. We didn't come to Earth to be ruled by a clock. We came to experience and co-create in the natural way with the Earth, to be guided by the sun, the moon, the stars, the turning tides, the breath of wind, The circle of life is the circle of the seasons of earth. This is who we truly are. We're here to watch sunsets and sunrises, taste the air, dance and sing, and dream uninterrupted, to be masters of our own time on earth. So I now become the embodiment of my past, present and future selves, simultaneously existing. My errant energies pulled now into this body. For this I am technology, that is the soul, is the experiencer of all of this, and my body is the medium of that experience, my earthly accomplice, friend and portal to the experiences. Now, read these words and own yourself, for surely you owe it to yourself. You owe the system nothing, it owes you. So call back in all that energetic debt from the system. For the unseen world that works with you recognizes that imbalance and will work with you if you ask it to bring it back to zero balance. No longer feel you don't have choices, or let the system make choices on your behalf. For that makes you only be half of what you truly are. You are here for you. You turned up exquisite and beautiful at this now time to be the fullness of yourself. So claim that legacy. Don't be buffered about by the pompous guffaws of the system's windbags who pretend they know best for you. You are your own spokesperson, your own medicine, your own catalyst for change, your own resolute power. And when you connect your mind with your heart, you own you. And in the claiming of that sovereignty, no entity, seen or unseen, no being, no other has power or influence over you. For the sovereignty you're claiming back is now emanating in your energetic field. And the power you have is in your choices. It's not so much what the self-serving system of domination and control does. It's in the choices you make within that system. It's in your self-belief and self-trust that you know best for yourself. It's how you claim and manifest your free will. You are of the earth and in this world. The earth is your anchor, co-creator and source of nourishment, and you are in dominion with her. The world is for you to experience and learn sovereignty and evolve and discover who you truly are. And the life you manifest is the barometer of the balance of this. Aho.
Beautiful, Laura. Lovely.
Aho.
Aho, aho. Very powerful, Laura.
Thank you. Did anybody lose me there, or did you get to hear all of it?
That was really beautiful.
It was
I
perfect.
heard all of it.
Good, good, good.
There
There will be a copy up later if anybody wants it, because I think it's quite a powerful one to read. So has anybody got any questions in that, what they've just heard, that needs some more explanation from me before we move on and have a look at it more in depth? Does everybody resonate with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the things for me when you're going through that, Laura, is that I've been self-employed for quite a long time, and I think that gives you more freedom than if you're in employment. And one's in charge, one's own diary, one doesn't have to commute when it's so. I think that helps a lot. I think in what you're saying. I don't know what others feel. I don't know how many other people are self-employed or employed.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. Definitely. With that.
In what way would you guys say it helps? Does it help?
Because you're not constricted by a smaller system that you're working in, which is a sort of microcosm of the big system, a big company or a small company. So they will still come with their rules. Whereas if you've got your own rules, your own way of working, then you're making your own life. I think I've worked for a company a couple of times, but mostly throughout my life, I've had my own companies or my own situation. And when I have worked for those other companies had actually become physically ill in those situations. And I think that's how it manifested for me. Norman.
So that's independence in the workplace. Independence, sovereignty in the workplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gives you more empowerment, you feel, don't you? Is what you're saying? Yeah.
Definitely, because you don't necessarily feel those constraints when you're working in the situation. They're just there, but you live within them. So, get to work on time, make sure that you stay maybe a little bit longer if you need to, have your lunch hour when you're supposed to have those kind of things. They just become part of what you're doing, and you don't see them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they constrain you.
Yeah.
And the thing about sovereignty is that, you can't see a picture if you stand with your nose touching it. You can't see the fullness of the picture, and that's the situation that we're in. Our sovereignty has been trampled over on in so many different areas, and it's been passed to us from generation upon generation upon generation of conformity. And it is micro and macro, and those little moments where where you get to decide what it is that you want to do, how you do things. For me, that's absolutely fundamental to how I earn business and run money. Unless of course someone was paying me a ridiculous amount of money, and I'd do anything they ask, without question. That's for sure. But it just depends on how sovereignty has been given away over so many different phases of our life. And I think that the part about sovereignty for me is realizing where you've given away your sovereignty. And it's such a vast subject. When you said that at the beginning, I was kind of breathtaking. I was like, wow, what a subject to bring up,
Yeah.
I think I've been studying now for maybe 7 to 8 years on this subject, and I learn every single day, the subtleties of it. And I think that you could be in a position or a job that you don't really like, but still be sovereign.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, because sovereignty is about looking at your life and looking what decisions are you making. And if that's the right decision for you in the moment, then you can do that in your own sovereign action,
Oh, sure.
But it's a huge subject, the banking system, how much that limits us, and even just the way people are, generally the way they are, people conform, and they conform without questioning, and it's how much are you willing to step out of other people's opinions of you, other people's projections of you, what other people may think, say, or do about you. That's kind of the beginning of it, Once you remove that from yourself, then you do things for yourself.
Yeah. Let me give you a question, Matty. Where do you think sovereignty starts? What would be a good starting point for you for sovereignty?
Doing things that my mum and dad told me I shouldn't do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was sort of thinking of like working from the heart for me is the first start to being sovereign. I don't think I couched my question very well, but for me, when you bring your mind to your heart is how it works for me. That's how I start.
Yeah, well, so from that perspective, it was it's a funny one, you see, because I became aware of all of this energetic world, of the unseen world, in a really unusual circumstance, and it took me a while. I was practicing psychic while I was still living a fairly immoral life, and for me it was a gradual process, and it was heart-basedness, because all of a sudden you have this responsibility, and when you have awareness that is multidimensional, then things can come at you from all sides, and truth is one of those things, isn't it? It's truth that we strive for, and I suppose it was, for me, it was in the quest to find truth. So I suppose each time that I got deceived, I grew a little bit stronger. Each time I messed up, I grew a little bit stronger. And by constantly striving to make the right choices, I came across opportunities in which to reclaim my sovereignty, piece by piece. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Life brought you the necessary sort of experiences that would nudge you into sovereignty, but you recognize them.
Oh, in hindsight, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes not at the time.
Mm.
You know, and it's funny how synchronicity plays a part in it as well, because there are some things that, even just fears of things, fear was a big one for me, you know. I'm just trying to recall some certain situations, but it's quite difficult on the spot. It's such a vast subject, you know. It's one that you have to dig deep for sovereignty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a deep subject, and you know, let's just maybe continue a little bit on this. I just want to, you know, so we've got non-conformity as a form of sovereignty. We've got a form of independence in the workplace as a form of sovereignty. We've got a heart-based discernment as a form of sovereignty. You know, staying out of the tyranny of fear, like Matthew just said, as a form of sovereignty. Then we, of course, have the multidimensional sovereignty.
Yeah.
There's much more. So whilst we continue asking the question, what does sovereignty mean to you? Maybe I can just say a little bit about, of course, the multidimensional aspect of it, which I am at the moment quite interested in. And I've just been looking at, you know, through various experiences of late, looking at, as we expand the field of experience, of our experience, we are becoming aware of aspects of ourselves that are connected to us within the field of consciousness that we haven't acknowledged yet. And some of those aspects, those multidimensional aspects, if you wish, those soul shards, parts, and avatars, that we are not necessarily always acknowledging, they have sometimes their own agenda. And it's quite interesting because that can bite you in the butt quite a bit by not acknowledging that. And these aspects are actually literally connected to our physicality. They live in our molecular structure, they live in our cells, they live in our organs. So some of them, not all of them, of course, but some of them are really, truly connected to us. And by us not communicating and communing with them and actually acknowledging them, they sometimes go awry. And they start having their own little agenda, fighting with other soul shards from other people. So it's the whole soul shard politics that can, you know, get started, and that's a very different energy to entities, what we've been discussing before. So that's an aspect I just want to bring into your awareness on a slightly multidimensional level to start looking at that.
So how would you deal with that, Martina? How would you overcome those misbehaving soul shards?
You know, I'm a big fan of awareness is change.
Yeah.
Number one, be aware of that is actually happening. You know, I always go back to, you know, to the settlers that have never seen a ship. If you don't know what a ship is, then you literally can't see it like it used to be, you know, that story. So when I first become, and even having an awareness of it, we just don't take it serious because it's not constantly in your face. And there's 1,000 other, you know, distractions and things like that, because we just don't allow ourselves to think outside the box within that field of experience, within that field of consciousness that is actually available to us. So number one, yeah, awareness. And then, of course, starting the communication. And then everything that applies to this narrative then applies to the multidimensional narrative too. You know, it's just like having a chat with them and saying, hey, this doesn't work for me, or this does work for me. And then, you know, all the other parts that we're going to discuss now in the sovereignty arena will then apply to the unseen too. So it's not a mystical thing as such. It's just really acknowledging a different level of our existence.
Yeah, what happens here is also reflected in the unseen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Laura.
No, go.
I say which then, you know, what Martina just said there. So it would probably be a moral code. You know, the first step would be, you know, developing a moral code. And that moral code leads you to make those right decisions, become aware of those things, seen and unseen. Because without a moral code, there is no structure, and it has to be self-imposed.
Exactly. And that leads us back to the sovereignty in this arena, in this reality. What is your moral code? Because your moral code is different to somebody else's. What is your truth? And then apply that truth also on a multidimensional level. So
let's go on, Martina, go on.
No, if there is any more to that. Hi, Mary. Now we've got her.
Hi, Mary.
Here she is. Hi, Mary. Sorry, ask you the question, Laura. I didn't.
No, I was just going to pursue a little bit the unseen world's effect on us, because not everybody really understands how much the unseen world can have effect on us, like AIs predicting, you know, our future. And the fact that when we do, say, for example, revocations like the one I've just written, or write your own, or any sort of revocation that claims you as the being that's living in your heart and making the decisions in this body, that has a big effect on the unseen world. And let's just say probably most people are unaware what a huge effect the unseen world has on us.
And you know what, Laura, this is where I wish we had Andrew in, you know, for those zinger facts.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the thing is, if you're not practicing regular spiritual hygiene, if you're not aware to some level of your unseen environment and you have no moral code, then the sheer amount of unseen activity that must be interacting with you on a day-to-day basis, this goes from your technology through to ghosts, ancestral spirits, all kinds of different things. You know, you're probably operating on, 3% sovereignty, you know, average amount of people. I imagine they barely touch 5% sovereignty, you know, and then you've got, because you've got the parasympathetic, the sympathetic that's also working against you, trying to take your sovereignty away. But the unseen influence for me, and you know, and you become aware of it, but it happens over time. You know, the first thing is, you know, the I don't know if anybody has ever experienced the kind of electric feeling on the back of your neck, and you're in a creepy place, and all of the back of your neck just goes like electricity, you know. And this is when an entity is trying to attach to you. This is what, you know, this is when they're trying to attach to you, and there's a slightly sickening feeling. And the amount of people that must be walking around and these things are jumping from person to person to person to person, pulling the strings and playing games, you know. And it's a simple matter of saying no. But how do you teach people to say no? That's the thing, isn't it? Because most people are not even aware that it's even happening. But it's a huge thing. It's I mean, that's where sovereignty starts, really, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, I agree. I have
I
experienced that, and I know just what you're talking about. I tend to get pain in the shoulders and the solar plexus, and I think that was a very hard lesson for me, several months of this, before I learned, actually, I'm stronger than you. It's about self-empowerment and believing in yourself. And as I say to other people, you know, if you could see these beings and what they're doing to you, you'd probably punch them. You know, you are far stronger, but you can punch them verbally. And we all know Andrew's lovely metaphor with putting a brick in your handbag. And I'll be honest, I use that a lot of times when I could feel these energies coming in and impacting on my sovereignty. So I learned sovereignty really the hard way, but I used this. And walking down the aisles at the local garden centre doing this one day, knowing what they were doing to me, and it helped. It made such a lot of difference, and telling them, no, you have no access to me because I'm a sovereign being. Just a few simple words like that, and it makes such a lot of difference. It changes your whole emanation, it changes your environment that you're in, and the more self-empowered you get like that, the more success you have when you do that, the more you want to tell people, look, you know, there is a way that the unseen does affect you. And once you get charge of yourself and trust your own being, I mean, as I wrote, we're all absolutely magnificent souls in these bodies. Absolutely magnificent. Oh,
Excuse me.
all right, Matty.
Yeah. And you know, the thing is, the true power that we do hold when we do become sovereign is remarkable.
Yes.
You know, it is sometimes if I go to a house and I'm doing a clearance and I'll have to put up a thing to stop them from running away. You know, I want them to be there when I get there, you know, put a shield up to keep them in, you know, and this, and I've taught people this, you know, somebody just, it's so simple. It's as simple as sitting down and doing a 5-minute meditation and you can literally clean your house, you know, it's just purely through that intention. So the idea of sovereign, we must be sovereign beings, really, you know, like that spark of sovereignty is just waiting, isn't it? You know, and it's just a simple declaration.
Yeah, for people to recognize it, and your whole life runs better. I mean, you know, you must have experienced that, your life running better with sovereignty, Matty. I mean, all of us would, because, you know, I think some of us can be more sovereign than others in total unawareness.
I think for me, that's absolutely a key, that things are going right. And it's almost to a point where I know I'm doing something and I can feel the energy behind it. It's not really helping me out, you know, but yeah, I make a choice to do it anyway. And then I can feel, you know, let's say I feel like some abundance needs to flow, and I know, all right, maybe it's time to make that choice. And so I'll make a new choice and instantly the abundance comes. I mean, it's almost instant sometimes, you know, it's freaky deaky, you know, and it's that it allows the rules of the universe to work with you. Again, this is where you need Andrew's terminology, Andrew's genius behind it, because sovereignty is all, I mean, that's how you gain access to that stream, isn't it? That there is abundance out there for all of us. And sovereignty is the first action in reclaiming yourself, making your own choices to say, no, I'll move towards that outcome. You know, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
As a sovereign being, you don't need any other being to be sovereign. You only need to choose it. And that's, you know, and you don't have to use words. You can just energetically manifest all of that around yourself. The only thing is, I don't want to go too much into the,
Go on.
sorry. I want to say something more. I just want to say one more thing. Sorry, I want to say one more thing to the.
Martina, say what you want to say. Go on.
To the
what would you like to look at? What would you like to investigate?
I just want to say another point to the point that I made earlier. Before we go off into the spiritual hygiene bit too much. That's my only thing. I want to, you know, let's keep it on the sovereignty.
Yeah.
The only thing is the soul shards I was talking about is a slightly different element there. Yeah. You could also say it's a spiritual hygiene aspect of it. All I want to say is at this stage is just become aware of the family soul shard politics, because we always talk about, you know, we're all part of a soul family and we keep on reincarnating into the same soul family. And then that was my understanding, which I only acknowledged a couple of days ago. That doesn't necessarily mean that soul family you're in is all very familiar and they're all working together, because every participant in the family is linked to other soul families.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that really opens up a completely different playing field, because the soul family members in your entourage don't necessarily work together the way you want them to work together. And they can actually hold on to some of the soul shards that you are wanting to integrate. And that's the awareness I want to bring to this on the sovereign level with regards to sovereignty.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, in order to be fully sovereign, you would need to acknowledge, one, that there's potential soul family members who have a piece of you, and two, that you want it back.
Yes.
Okay.
That this is actually in existence, because that is not something we are very aware of.
Yeah.
And this
Seems
is where
like
it comes
they
to
have massive, a big lump of our energy, isn't it? They've taken a big chunk of our energy, and I think we've all probably experienced that, unless we've all got wonderful families who don't make any demands on you at all. And I think we've all been in that, where we've given a big piece of us and not realized, and you come away and you feel drained, and you still feel, we were discussing this the other day, Martina, weren't we? You feel you you need to go back. You still feel drawn to them because they're in your family. And we were actually wondering whether it's because we're drawn to actually go back and try and claim back that piece of soul shard that we've given them, or claim back that large chunk of energy.
Yeah, it's that. And it's also almost not being able to cognitize that level of consciousness, that level of awareness. Almost not acknowledging that that is a possibility. You know, it's like, what? Really? That type of energy, you know?
Yeah.
Different level of, it's another level of sovereignty and spiritual hygiene.
Yes, because you're saying once you acknowledge it, you're halfway to getting that piece back.
Yes.
So it's in the awareness and the acknowledgement.
That's correct.
And then the rest could be down to the spiritual hygiene, or the, as I think Matty said, or you said, just the simple saying, I take all my energy back that you took from me. And you don't have to say it to them. You can say it anytime, can't you? You don't have to involve them at all on an unseen level.
Yeah. So translating this whole spiel here is everything you're not acknowledging can bite you in the ass.
Go on.
No, that was it. That was the translation.
Oh, okay.
Everything you're not acknowledging can bite you in the ass. So be aware.
Everything you're not acknowledging, or everything you're acknowledging. Everything you're not
acknowledging.
Yeah.
Can work against you.
Yes. Yes. And how do we know what we're not acknowledging?
Yes. That's the exploration. That's why we're here.
And that is why we're here. Absolutely.
One of the things that Matty was saying, he said a lot of people might be only 3% sovereignty. I'd be quite interested to know what people think, what percentage sovereignty they have in themselves at the moment. I mean, I thought that I might have 66% sovereignty, but from what you've been saying, I might be unaware of things. So perhaps I've only got about 50% or 40%. So I'm just wondering what other.
I'll tell you what, Norman, think about this. Think about this, as Martina was talking about soul shards. So you just imagine, if you subscribe to the idea of having multiple lives at any one time, you think those other versions of yourself, those other shards of you, they live through alternate and other dimensions. And if you think they're not aware of you, then you're kidding yourself. So you think about all of the different plethora of beings that could be affecting you in any one time, seen and unseen. But we have the mask of the global narrative to distract us. So sovereignty, like Martina was saying, it's just multidimensional and vast. And it just comes to being aware that in order to be sovereign, you have to declare your sovereignty. And that's an ongoing process. So it takes time. Most people, the decisions that are made for them well ahead of time. Even just advertising, banking, family, all these things add to making you more predictable.
Well, that means I'm probably actually 3% sovereignty, and I don't realize it.
No.
I've come down from 66% to 3%.
And that's without the systems of domination and control, the ancestors, the inner earth, the extraterrestrials. That's without all of that, without the Wi-Fi, the black money magic curse. I mean, come on, it's vast.
Well, I'm down to 1% now.
Well, and also remind yourself, every day is different. Every moment is different, because you can go through moments of unconsciousness where you're just like, there's so much that is distracting you from your true beingness that, you just cannot function on a higher level of awareness, and then sometimes you have these spouts, these where you all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, what's happening, so you're not constantly in the same level of awareness and consciousness, as far as I'm concerned. And certainly this is not to start putting blame on oneself, but this is just really to look at and say, okay, so what more information can I gather that I haven't looked at? What more of this consciousness can I explore? And then if it resonates, just apply and look at it. And choose it. It's a daily choice. It's a choice from moment to moment.
Yeah, and it brings you so many gifts along the way, doesn't it? Just doing the work, and it's not really that difficult. I think the difficulty in some people is just understanding, as we said, about the unseen world and its effects on you.
Yes, yes.
But once you've made that decision, as we're saying, it's can be simple declarations as well as the feeling of living from your heart mind.
Okay.
That you are fully in your body, which is where grounding comes into it as well. You know, there's some real basic stuff in here that we can all do to feel more sovereign, or to claim our sovereignty.
Yeah, and you know, sovereignty is a word. It's a bit like choice, you know. To give you an example, when I first looked at the word choice, of the energy of choice, maybe, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what it looked like, because I never functioned from a place of choice, because I was always just like, you know, pushed into a situation and then I took it from there, you know. So choice was something I had to explore. And I think sovereignty is another word, is another energy we need to explore to actually know what it means to us, you know? So what does, we've got conformity, we've got heart-based discernment, we've got independence. We obviously got, you know, the spiritual hygiene on a multidimensional level. But what else does sovereignty mean?
Can I chime in here?
Yes.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, I made it. Andrew said something really, really good the other day. I don't know what day it is. I don't really live in time, but sometimes, wherever, that they asked him a really good question, and what he said, his replies when Laura told me today, oh, make a food about sovereignty and everything, and I said, oh, my food is like that anyway, and I'm interested about what Martina said, or not interested, but like I like what Martina said earlier, because first of all, we have 15 million per minute information in the subconscious mind, which is the data. So we're not really free. You know, we're not really sovereign, if you will. You know what I mean? But I like what Martina said, because to be aware of, like, when you step into more and more in your power, and then Andrew's answer was that when you step into a level of true, no competition, no hierarchy, and all, when you step into that level, then I'm not saying you're 100% sovereign, but when you step into that level, everything becomes so how can I say, your life, or I'm talking about myself, your life becomes free, really. When you step into that level, and you not just step into it and choose it, like Martina was saying earlier, but continue that, you know, like keep that level, you know, to keep that level and keep being aware of, okay, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here. And like Martina was saying, just because you haven't seen it, you know, in my words, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
Yes, I had a client a few days ago, and she was like, anyway, we had a session, and I said to her, because she didn't believe something, I said, so have you ever seen a duck climb a tree? She said no, and I said, I did this morning, because I was aware. It's like when I go out, I'm thinking, it is exactly what Martina said, what happened this morning. I'm thinking, somebody, you are there, I see you, and then suddenly, poof, it showed itself. You know what I mean? Like, I see things that now I raise my level and I'm aware of, and it's going more up and up and up, because I am responsible to keep that, to continue to keep that. And I like what Martina said about those soul charts. I like what Martina said, you know, what she talked about earlier, the families and everything, because it's here and we can create with them here in this reality. you know. But what Andrew said, his answer was so clear, and it was just like, yes, that is it.
Yeah.
You know, that is
Yeah.
it. Because when you are that, you really, I mean, you're free, you're sovereign, like whatever, you know, do whatever you like. I think, you know what I mean, not like whatever you like, but you know, you get the idea. So.
Laura?
Yeah, well, I didn't know whether Andrea wanted to explain. For me, that equal co-creation, non-competition,
Yes. Oh, sorry.
non-hierarchical.
Sorry. I thought
Yeah.
that was,
Did you want to explain more of that for people who won't have heard, probably haven't heard Andrew say that before? Do you want to explain that? I mean, non-competition is straightforward, but it's also with our other selves we're saying that we are the apex of our own hierarchical order. In other words, all the soul shards and energies that Martina's talking about, the multi-dimensional selves, we're the ones who are on Earth now, manifested in these two legs. Yeah, this is what you're saying about sovereignty, isn't it,
yes.
Andrea? Yeah.
Yes. Because the question was for somebody asked a question, and the question was, Andrew, so how come you have thousands and thousands of people, clients queuing at your door? And his answer was, because people don't want to go to another level. They're not willing to be another, you know, like you know. And then it followed that when you get to that no competition, no hierarchy, that's when you are, you know, there.
Okay, so if I can just say something, what I'm understanding from you, Andrea, is you're saying that non-judgment.
No judgment, no hierarchy. You know, the Andrews think that what. Yeah.
Which is all non-judgment under the big umbrella of non-judgment, which is a huge factor of sovereignty.
Oh, absolutely.
You get into that level of non-judgment where you staying out of conclusion, you staying out of competition, all of that leads you into sovereignty. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and also when you take responsibility for what is going on with you, because everything is within, you can actually, I mean, I discovered something last week, which I did, but you can affect this world and the unseen one on a level which you never even imagine. This happened to me last week, but I will come out with it when I'm ready. But it's like you can affect this reality and the other reality, because Andrew talks about, like, you know, like he affects thousands and thousands of people in a galactic world, and but when all of us can do that, like everybody can do that if they are willing to be responsible for what's going on in them, for, you know, do your work, like Laura said or Martina said. And like Martina said, I really liked when you said that I actually opened up another awareness. You know me, I do it straight away. I don't really hang about. But when you said that about the soul charge in the families, that you have this one and then there's another layer and there's another layer, I think this is so exciting.
Yes, I agree. Exciting from a co-creation perspective, and it can be quite, you got to watch out. There's a couple of not so nice there too.
Just eliminate them, whatever. Sayonara.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't hang about, you know, like, see you later. Because that's our time. This is our time to create that. I did that actually last week. And what I did last week in the afternoon, it already had an effect at Andrew's show. I just couldn't believe it. That was incredible.
Yeah, it can happen quite quickly.
So I raised, I mean, it happened to me many times, but because I raised to a totally different level, it's just like, wow, amazing. And I did something a few days ago as well. So, but just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean this exists.
That's right.
You know?
I remember, Laura, when you had a problem with entities and your mother, And you had a similar story where you banished them.
Yeah, that was part of my learning to be sovereign, and that was part of my having to acknowledge the unseen world and the effect it was having on Mum. And that was pretty much the start of the, in some ways, yeah, since you bring that up, I think that was the start of the sovereignty journey. And I had to come out of fear, as Matty was saying, that's a big one, to come out of the fear of these beings. And yes, of course, being spiritually hygienic, spiritually clean is very important. And as Martina said, the acknowledgement that they're there and they can affect somebody else, especially somebody you love, greatly. Yes. And I couldn't have done that work if I hadn't also learnt to be sovereign, probably, along the same path as that. I couldn't have done the work I did with her if I wasn't sovereign enough to handle it and come out of fear and to do what I needed to do. But I think it's also, as Andrea's saying, absolutely, it's that non-competition with the other parts of yourselves, the sacred neutral, the non-judgment, as Martina says. I mean, Matty said this is a whole huge subject.
Yes, and Andrew said he added, who will be the first to start?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I sometimes, when I'm explaining some of these higher levels of awareness to people, and they come to understand that there are so many different levels, and they say to me, what do I need to do? And for me, the first thing I do is I say, look at the contract revocations.
Yeah.
Look at the contract revocations. And I learned that when you start to perceive the unseen world, you do learn through your imagination quite quickly how to protect yourself, because it's all just in the imagination. And I was doing that stuff, and I thought I was, the badass. And then I came across Andrew, and when I first read those revocations, and I recommend anybody that's listening to this that hasn't looked at Andrew's revocations, that will put so much more into perspective about what sovereignty is and the linguistics that you need for the correct power behind your prayer to, on a cyclical basis, reclaim that sovereignty. Because it all sounds very woo-woo and out in the air, it's not solidified, but until you see a document or a set of words like Laura read, that's empowered, that's how you actually begin to take back your sovereignty. Out loud, what Andrew calls the out loud, name it to claim it.
That's right. Yeah, name it to claim it. I forgot that. Yeah. Anybody who doesn't know, they can get them on his website, andrewbartsis.com, and they're free. There's about 8 of them. And you can also write your own, as we were saying, Matty. Your own words.
Yeah, I'm coming out with one, Laura, now, and I'm gonna publish it. It's ready, but I've been doing loads of stuff, so yeah, I'm gonna publish it. And it's a poem revocation. As you know, I write poems, but it's about what I have seen. You will see it on the camera, because I have seen a dog climbing a freaking tree. He couldn't do it, but he believed he could.
A small shot of you or somewhere.
And the reindeer was flying. I was like, what is going on today? It wasn't today, but last week. But we did see that. And a fish jumped out of the water next to my husband. He's going mental.
Crazy. So just coming from the revocations back into this narrative here, because the revocations are exactly about the banking system. They're about, claiming your revocation from the banking system, from the money system, from the portion of what is male and what is female, divinity and all of that. So it's very much related to this narrative. And what I would like to do now is to bring in my next question or next thing, to bring sovereignty back into this narrative. So let's get away from the unseen for a little bit, and actually let's use what's happening at this moment with the virus situation, because sovereignty is a big subject at the moment.
Yeah,
it's being totally thrown at us on a daily basis. You know, sovereignty in terms of, to police, obviously, taken over, and I'm not just talking about this country, what's happening in the world and people protesting because their sovereignty is taken away just by being in a bloody lockdown. So there's so much more. I want to expand on that. What does sovereignty actually mean to us, and how is the virus now, not the virus itself, but the facilitation of the breakdown of everything, pointing out to us what sovereignty actually meant to us, which we never really thought about in the first place. What is it that we're all rebelling now, and on what level that's actually pointing us towards we want to be more sovereign?
Yes, it's funny, Martina, because one of the reasons I brought this subject up initially was the vaccination issue coming in.
Absolutely.
Of the coronavirus vaccination. And I thought, I wonder if people realise they can also, work in the unseen by claiming their sovereignty against the vaccination and so on. And that's what I mean about the life working better for you. And I did think, that's a perfect example now, while people are at home and there's so much shenanigans going on in the government and so on, that now's the time to really think about the choices that we're going to make. Are they our choices, or are we going to be pushed in, coerced into making decisions that aren't really in our heart to make, or to go along with what they want that's not really in our heart? Because what's in our heart is what is our best choice for us, what we decide, regardless of what anybody else decides. That has got to be what we decide for our journey.
Yeah. And this is the thing, and obviously this is what rings true for me, because I'm a big picture person. I always need to, in order to gain some more passion and momentum, I need to look at the bigger picture. So for me, vaccination is a perfect example. For me to make a stand on vaccinations, I need to actually look at it in the context of my sovereignty is taken away from me. That all of a sudden expands my energy in going in, other than just having a go at bloody Bill Gates, you know what I mean? So it's just opening up a much bigger energy behind us to step up and say, okay, we don't want that. So now vaccination is one of them. What else is there? I mean, what I've been looking at the moment is freedom of speech. It's quite fascinating, the attacks that are happening on journalism at the moment. Yeah, journalism is under complete attack at the moment, because the governments on so many levels actually trying to, what's the word? Not confiscate. They're trying to tell them what they can say, what they can talk about, and what not. There's so many tremendously different, accounts of what has been said and who is saying. It's fascinating. So that's another thing that is coming in. And I've heard Facebook is apparently now subsidizing independent journalism. Well, what does that tell you? That's part of the sovereignty that we need to look at. That's freedom of speech. That even the lockdown, I'm not saying I'm not against the lockdown, but even the lockdown is almost like showing us, when I look at how other people respond to it all over the world, is showing us that there is an element of, I don't want to be told by the government what to do. It's an energy that is now being facilitated, which is actually just acknowledging all that crap that wasn't working in the first place.
Yeah.
For me, the virus is just a facilitator of this crappy capitalism system that's gone awry. We need a new economy system. We need new energy sources and all of that. We need to think bigger. Now that's a big sovereignty thing, and everything falls into that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big picture. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I saw on Facebook they were saying that on YouTube there's a clip out to say that on the 27th of April they've put out a law basically, it's quite complicated as laws are, but basically you don't have a right, you have to be vaccinated. If not, they can sort of take you away and lock you up and whatever. So basically they wanted to put a petition against it because on the 27th of April, they made a law that everybody will be vaccinated.
They'll never be able to do that in this country. They'll never be able to force vaccinate the whole population in this country. There's absolutely no way that will ever happen.
They put a law, well,
Yeah.
the clip I watched, they sort of said it is now law, it's now mandatory. If you don't want it, sign a petition.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's why we need to gain clarity of what sovereignty really means to us on every single level, so that we can gain then, not just walk out there and have a go at one thing, but come out with an informed decision with a lot of energy behind it that is sovereign within ourselves, with the truth that we can speak from a place of authenticity and not just being a David Icke talking shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Be authentic.
That's my perspective. So, censor that if you wish. Anyway.
Hi, can I chime in here? Martina, can I chime in here?
Sure.
Remember, we spoke about, or when we have to go out to the street and really stand up for our sovereignty. Remember, we spoke about that. But like right now, as you know, for me, it's like everything is just up in the air at the moment. I mean, I don't follow it because I've been doing stuff. But what I am aware of that now, because people are really into to go out, they are just going to go out. I mean, we are not on a lockdown because we can go anywhere. But when they say, okay, it's over, that's, for me, it's a very dangerous ground, because it's almost like you said, we are stepping on our sovereignty, saying, okay, now you can go out. Why are you telling me that I can go? It's like almost a mental game, because we can go out now, but mentally people think, no, we can't, because that's what the government is telling us. And when the government says, now we can go out, again, it's like they're programming into you what you can or what you can't do. And hence, which is what, remember, Andrew was saying, that it's not going to be a good result, not going to be a good, for the bigger picture, it's not going to be the best.
Yeah. And that's one aspect, that's a good aspect of it. And I'm not instigating, having protests or anything like that. And I still maintain this is a time now to look within yourself and to start clearing all your crap and to, start looking at what is it that you really want to do in your life, what is really fun for you, what is joy for you, and looking at what sovereignty means to you is a huge basic elaboration and exploration, so that you know what you want to create in the future, in the present for the future.
Absolutely. I mean, you might want to go along with a lot of their plans, but that's sovereignty as well. If you feel that you've pulled all of yourself in, if you're doing it from a grounded point of view, isn't it? I mean, you can make any decision you want within the system. That's the choice of sovereignty, isn't it? You're not taking on their choices. You might choose to take on something the government wants you to do. I mean, like Martina, nobody's suggesting you go out and break the law. But I think a sovereign person actually is aware that there are other ways of handling some of the choices without necessarily protesting.
I'll tell you what else, Laura, as well. You don't realise because I'm just going to flip the frequency on that, because sometimes you don't realise what sovereignty is until you lose it, Yeah. And here's a story. I was sent to prison some years ago, and that for me was one of the most remarkable transformative journeys, because I'd never really experienced what it was like before to actually controlled movement, category B prison. Everywhere you went, it was controlled, open, counted, all kinds of rapists, murderers, and stuff like that. And it was just the most crazy, insane experience. But it liberated me, because I had to use everything within me, to have a moral code, and I learned what was important to me when it was all taken away from me. And I came out of there, and I, you know, I never had one problem with anybody at all. It's not staff, not prisoner, not at all. You know, and it was when I come out of there, the whole world looked different. And it's kind of a metaphor for the kind of experience that we're about to go through, you know, because people are they're not gonna know what they're missing. And when they're in this lockdown, yeah, there's all the oppression and all of the stuff on the internet, which I, to be honest with you, just don't even look at. And there's all that kind of stuff, you know, but really what's happening is people are at home with their families. That's what's really happening, isn't it? You know, people are at home with their families, and people are learning what it feels like again to not have to get up, to rush to work, not to have to do this, to that. Well, the lucky ones, that's for sure, apart from, you know, the health workers and stuff, and I take my hat off to those guys. But some of us are learning different lessons. And I think when they do eventually say, okay, it's time to come out, the world's guaranteed to be changed. Not just from what's going outside, but what's going on inside as well. You know, people won't forget an experience like that. People taking their children out of school that would never have thought about doing it, things like that, you know. And
Yeah.
it's an interesting time. There is a lot of oppression, but also there's a lot of opportunity for transformation.
Perhaps there's a lot of self-empowerment going on, probably without people realizing it, making many more of their own choices.
Yeah, I like, Matty, when you said flipping the frequency. Sometimes when I get stuck on an energy, I can't really define it, and I'm you know, I just look at the opposite. So what would be the opposite of sovereignty to you?
Oh, that's a difficult question, Martin. That's a zinger, that is. I don't know. It's slavery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Complete opposite is slavery.
What else? Throw me a couple of those, because that's a good exploration. What's the opposite of sovereignty?
Unconsciousness. Unconsciousness. Not being
Unconsciousness.
consciously aware or making conscious actions.
Okay, what else?
Gosh.
Disempowerment.
Yeah.
Fear.
Disempowerment, fear. What else?
I think fear is a big one.
Mm.
Yep.
When you look at Mandela and how long he spent in prison and how he came out of that situation as such a peacemaker and with no hatred, and you know, it was quite amazing. And he obviously retained his sovereignty within that situation for 24 years, I think. And so the fear must be one of the big ones, I think.
Yep. What else, guys? What else you got?
Well, you're accepting someone else's choice and belief above your own.
Mm-hmm.
So victimization, Martina.
Disempowerment. Say again.
Yeah.
Victimization, being a victim,
Being
feeling
a victim.
victim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Allowing projections to actually take hold in you.
Projections, yeah. So can we take that? I want to throw in lack of abundance. I want to throw in the thinking that there is no abundance. The lie of there is no abundance.
Yeah.
So let's take that energy, all those energies that we've all had, and let's just destroy and uncreate all those.
Yes.
Take those energies and just throw them out, dissolve them. You don't need to know where they, you know, came from and any of that. And then again, I'm going to ask you the question. So what's the opposite of sovereign to you? Let's drill down a bit more so that we can actually start figuring out when we're acting in unknowingness where there is sovereignty linked to it. What else is?
Well, one of Laura's opening remarks was patriarch system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I made a note of.
Yeah.
Presumably that's changed quite a bit. That must be the opposite of
Yeah.
sovereign.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I think, Martina, when your mind, body, soul, you know, the atoms and everything, it's totally entangled and intertwined with not even a consciousness.
Entanglement.
Entangled and intertwined. You know, when your mind, body, and soul totally entangled and intertwined to almost like blindness or ignorance of what is within you, because everything starts within you, and or unawareness. When you are totally detached from sovereignty, it's like almost like you're not even existing, whether
Yeah.
the seen or the unseen. You know?
So thanks for that, because you mentioned just 3 actually quite big energies that are standalone. Okay, so we've got entanglement, we've got detachment. How many people detach from all of this? Oh, this has fuck all to do with me, and you know, don't do anything about it, don't even think about it, what sovereign means to them, because they're so detached from all of that, you know. And to be honest, I was one of them at some stage, because I never looked at any of what this narrative was doing, because I was much more interested on a, you know, not really. This is the first year, the last couple of months, where I've actually taken interest in what is going on in the narrative. And why? Because I've started to realize that I have a responsibility, you know, to look at the sovereignty that I truly want to be, and what do I actually want to create out of all of that for myself, you know, and how, as an inspirer, how can I inspire other people what they can create from a sovereign perspective without knowing what's actually out there. And this is why sometimes, you know, taking interest and actually I wouldn't say attaching, but total detachment is definitely not going to get you anywhere. You have to keep a level of interest in this whole thing. Yeah. So ignorance is a good word, because ignorance is quite a strong word, you know, and lots of people choose ignorance. And I don't think if you want to be a sovereign being, you can choose ignorance. It just doesn't work. And you can't have it twice.
Yeah, I was going to say there, Martina. Sorry, I was just going to say there, Martina, that, you know, sovereignty is about knowing your truth and following your truth, which kind of ties in a little bit with ignorance. And I'm just, as I'm listening to you all, I'm kind of getting a feeling that actually we're all living, you know, in a world where there's quite a bit of domination and control at the moment. So so we're all under that kind of regime, I suppose. But are we sovereign? Are we sovereign in that? Can we be sovereign in that? And I think we can. I think even the person who is imprisoned and their power is taken away can still be sovereign, because they can know their own truth. Yes. And I think once we know that, no matter how we're captured, we can still be a sovereign being.
Yes. Yes. And the next level is, what else can we create from there?
Yes.
Because we slightly beyond, you know, on the level of awareness we're playing at, we can't just say, okay, I can be sovereign within this. We've been able to do this for some time now, and that's really, really cool to acknowledge that. Another question is, what comes after that? How can we now contribute? How can we contribute, and what can we contribute to the creation of a new world, of a new economic system that actually allows us to acknowledge that there's abundance for everything and for everybody?
Sorry, Martina, I was just going to reply to your
sorry, Andrea.
No, it's okay. No, what I was saying is that when the opposite of this also is when you are totally entangled in the global narrative. You know, when you totally like, I believe this, yes. When you're totally entangled and ignore the, you know, and everything else, or just whatever.
Yes.
You know.
Now, I've got one, absolutely. Thanks for that. And that includes all, you know, the good words, the good energies that you brought up there. I've got an interesting one I was looking at the other day. Where does loyalty come into this?
Well, it's whether you're loyal to yourself or going to be.
I was just going to say that.
Exactly. First, you have to be loyal to yourself. You can't do anything until you can do it to yourself. You can't give anything to others until you can give it to yourself first, because then it's not a proper transaction.
Mm-hmm. And then I suppose in that whole sense of being loyal to oneself, you must always, I suppose, look at what is your own motivation, what is your own agenda for yourself.
Your moral code.
For the higher good of yourself and everybody else, or you know, what is it? It's good to look at that.
It is your moral code, and it should constantly change.
And now look what's happening again, being facilitated by the virus, where the loyalty of the self is not necessarily looked at this stage, because it's one country for themselves. It's very much like, we are a country, we are, you know, there's a lot of this old type of patriotism coming in, you know, which, you know, goes hand in hand with loyalty. And then where is the sovereignty in any of that? Because this is a huge energy palaver together, where we're throwing the patriotism and the loyalty to your country and the nationalism and the sovereignty. There's a huge dichotomy there, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's just that I see that. And we're being dragged into that, you know, oh, the Americans are this and the Europeans are doing better, the Austrians are great. They all work. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's, again, domination and control. That's not sovereignty.
No, but that worked in the past. It isn't going to work now as we go into the future, because just people are getting more awake and aware. And we're all in this together anyway.
Yes, we're in this together, but in a way than we've ever been.
Yes.
And that's to throw that in, because these are the thoughts that are coming in. I'm thinking, hang on a second, is this leading us in the right direction, or is this taking us off track again? Almost like from a positive perspective, because yeah, we're all in this together, work together as a country and la la la, but how much are we actually again being dragged into that domination and control? So
absolutely, yeah. Look at is it VE Day? Is it VE Day on Sunday, Linda? Can you remember?
I think so.
Or is it tomorrow, VE Day? So they're bringing up all that old war energy, and the Queen's going to give a speech, isn't she? And Boris is going to give a speech, and we're all to have afternoon tea. Yeah. Well, I have the afternoon tea bit.
Yeah. I think be aware of that.
I think in some there is a part of that I not to buy into the whole deal, but there's a part of that where we do have our ancestors who did give their lives, and not necessarily their deaths, but a lot of their life, to trying to keep up the majority of countries free, if we go back to what it's about, which was the 40s. And I think that to honour those ancestors is important to, because it was a different time. It's not like it would be if it happened now. The honouring of those ancestors, I think, is important. But I don't like all the pomp and circumstance and all the rubbish that goes along with it. But I think there's a part of it that I would like to acknowledge that you know is important.
Well, that is your sovereign choice.
Yeah,
which is as it should be.
And that's well said, Linda, as well. That's really well said. I've heard it said you should be a patriot to the land, not to the flag. You know. And,
absolutely. The whole earth. We should be a patriot to the whole earth.
Yes.
Because it's our home. The whole thing is our home. All the borders, and it was all dreamed up, and it's rubbish. Basically, they only exist on a piece of paper.
So I guess the most powerful thing that we can do, for the future, then, for sovereignty, would really to be ensure that there's no more war. You know.
Absolutely.
I think that's the best thing you can do. War is what takes away your sovereignty, isn't it? That's where you lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
well, I think what happens is,
you know,
patriotism. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just a quick line. Patriotism gets confused with nationalism.
With
big time, yes.
Nationalism.
Ah, yes.
But patriot, where does it come from? Patrio, you know, like the father that Norman mentioned before. And all of that, again, there is no judgment in any of that. This is a consciousness exploration. So you can celebrate all of the things that you want to celebrate. Just having the level of awareness that you are not allowing the system to harvest your energy at the same time. And that's the main thing. you know. And what's actually happening behind the scenes here while you're enjoying, you know, celebrating your ancestors and honoring them. What is actually happening? It's a little bit, again, if you look at the family, you think, oh, just because we're family we're also happy. No, a couple of soul shards there that are not on your side, and it's the same sort of energy. So always, it's almost like everything has an opposite side to it, and becoming more and more aware of the opposite side of the polarity of it without concluding anything.
Yeah.
Can I chime in here, Martina?
Uh-huh.
It's exactly what you said. It came up in me because my grandpa, actually, he's here, and you know, all those people who went to war, my grandpa died, both of them in the war. Imagine, did they do that from their sovereignty, from their choice, or were they following the global narrative? They had to, right? They had to go. And remember what Andrew, I don't know if you guys received this, but he sent out or put out something that in order to, you know, like Martin was talking about the family, the soul families, ancestral families. So in order to stop the war, you can cut and detach from that energy that, okay, what that created at that time, because it all comes back to us, because we might not even be conscious about that. Okay, so when we stop that now, that means that ancestral energy, that unsovereignty, if you will, is stopping with us now. It's our choice.
Yeah. And the tacit consent comes in there, you know. This is quite an interesting one. It's because when you choose unawareness, you are tacitly consent to something in unawareness because you don't know about it. And this is where the responsibility comes in to the level of awareness that you act. And the more awareness you want to play in, and there is no better or worse place, it depends. If you want to play on a certain level of a multidimensional being, playing in that consciousness, then you have to really take responsibility and allow yourself to look at everything.
No choice is still a choice.
Absolutely. Too, yeah, tacit consent, that sort of thing. Now there's another thing that comes in, you know, Roman numeral time. How does us working within Roman numeral time take us out of sovereignty, or does it?
It ties us all into one agreed social structure that the whole world runs by, that is given to us at birth.
Exactly. So what can we do about that? We can actually literally work on getting out of Roman numeral time whilst we're still working within it.
Yeah.
And how to do this? By just acknowledging what other times are out there. Connect to Earth time, connect to galactic, connect to a universal time. Because as a multidimensional being, you're actually working within universal time, within galactic time.
Yeah.
Connected to Earth time. Earth time is not Roman numeral time. If you go back before the Industrial Revolution, 1700s, beginning of 1800s, there was no Roman numeral time as such before that, because every bubble of reality where people lived had their own time. It only started when the railways started, and all of a sudden, you know, the world got much smaller, and we started connecting through Roman numeral time. That's the level of sovereignty I am talking about. So how can we get out of that? Again, a revocation, right? A revocation. That doesn't mean that, you know, you're not looking at, 5 o'clock Wednesday, I have to go on a Zoom. Yes, don't forget that. Find by it.
Well, that's what I mean by you can live in the world. You can live in the world with all these things and be sovereign too.
Yes.
Yes.
You can, and in some ways you have to, for a smoother ride.
That's the point of the reality, is it not?
Yeah.
That's why we're here. You know,
Yes.
so the challenges are there. You know, they're there designed for you to find your way to sovereignty or be burned, whichever one you prefer.
Yes. Absolutely. Sovereignty is always a choice.
Absolutely. And my experience has been, once I allowed myself to look at that bigger picture and play in the universal time, if you wish, then coming back to Roman numeral time was almost a pleasure. I was like, yes, nice. So what time is it now? I'm looking at my favorite program on TV or something, right? Yeah. Because I no longer felt confined in it. It was a choice that I was jumping from one multi-dimensional dimensional time into this time. Then I have a real choice, not just we must start. True sovereignty means to me looking at not just A and B choices. I want to know what is Z, D, E, F, G, blah, 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 26 choices and beyond. Yeah. That's true sovereignty for me. Everything else is crap.
Also, Martina, when you find your rhythm, like I don't have any clock here. I stopped the clock here in this house already. We put it away, but I don't really live in time. I mean, when you find the rhythm of time, if you will, not time, but your rhythm, then I'd say your body, your mind, your soul kind of, what's the right word? Adopts that rhythm of no time.
Yes.
And you're like, I have 3 days in one day, like sometimes 3-4 days in one day. Yeah. And it's like, I'm thinking, wow, that's been a long day, like a long dude. It's been a long week. Somebody like, you know what I mean? It's like when you find that rhythm, then my day personally expands in a way that's beyond. Yes. And it's like becomes this reality.
Yeah.
You've stepped out of time.
Yeah.
When you're stepping out of time into no time, it's infinite.
Yeah.
And I think you get the energy too, Andrea, to go with that. If you're doing something you're really passionate about, did you ever notice you don't find time passing and your energy just comes from wherever?
Because you're coming from the heart, you're fired up and you're glowing and you're doing what you love and what you enjoy.
Yes.
You're in that, that's it, that's the space.
Yes.
It comes from the heart. And also, Martina, I remember that you went dancing and we were talking about dancing with Andrew yesterday. And I'm sure most of you have been dancing. And when you dance and you get that rhythm, you feel so sovereign, right? You feel in that moment, you feel, So maybe Martina can talk about this more, I don't know. But for me, that's sovereignty.
Yes.
This is a dancer.
Point. Very good point, being in the moment. Yeah, when you come into the moment, sorry, I just got to admit Sue, she's got thrown out. When you're in the moment, you are in that no time field. You're right there, where everything happens and nothing happens. So where all the infinite possibilities are there.
And you don't age, which is brilliant.
Yeah,
so you get in that no time field.
All the social constructs disappear there. And of course, we need to acknowledge that our bodies are tools of entrainment, and we have been entraining them over millennia, So it's a bit of a practice to come out of that habit pattern. I mean, the mere fact that we're still going to sleep at a certain time, okay, well, we have obviously the daylight and the night, but almost I often practice when I wake up like at 3 in the morning, I'm thinking, oh God, I can't sleep. I'm thinking, great, let's practice no time. Get up, make myself a cup of tea, read something, and then go back to bed again. And this, of course, is now an opportunity, an option to do because we're not working, So
can I bring Liz in here, because she hasn't had a chance to say anything, and I'm sure you find this as well, Liz, because you give craniosacral therapy treatments like I do, and it would apply probably to anybody giving any sort of treatment, any healers. You feel as good when you come out of it as they do quite often. Do you find that, Liz? And I think that's because I've entered a no time field when I'm doing it. It doesn't feel like an hour or whatever it is that you start. Is that something you find?
Absolutely. I think especially when treating, it doesn't actually matter. I always talk to people about the fact there has to be an exchange. There has to be some form of, you can tell when someone's grateful. You can tell when someone is aware of what you're giving. And when that energy's there, you are energized and they are energized. And there's a wonderful circle of energy happening. And it doesn't even necessarily take me putting my hands on someone. It doesn't matter whether they pay me or not, because it's whether they have energy in the money that they're giving, that they are giving it, or it's just a piece of paper. And then it's just, they are draining me straight away. And it's just zapping out of my hand. And that is when I'm very conscious of time. That is when I'm watching the time tick by. But when I'm treating, I don't treat by time. So I will treat by however long that body needs to be treated on that day. And that's something I'm very open with. And I find it quite interesting. I'll always say to people, I will give you a treatment. And some people will look at the price and go, can you do less time? And it's a really interesting thing to then go, okay, I'll give you strictly 30 minutes and I'll give you by this price. And every single person next time will go, treatment for as long as you need. I know why you do
so
that.
You're already working in the no time zone, you see. Yeah. And when you're dancing, I know we've just glossed over that, but you're a big dancer, so you must find as well when you dance and you're in the moment, as Martina says, that time can just fly.
Oh, it's
know.
It's I think a space of no time is probably the best way of putting it, because I think it's like accessing every time. That's when I get most in tune with. Sometimes I feel like I'm in tune with every aspect of every lifetime of every being. It just coming out and then coming back in, and I'm just in my body and sometimes just tapping my foot, and it's like, wow, okay, I'm back. And it's this wonderful oscillation of, I have to be careful with that as well, because I have to tell people I'm going into that space. Like, you don't know how long I'm going to be gone. And sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 3 hours, but it doesn't change the experience at all. And that's what's phenomenal about it for me. That's how I access my grounding.
No time field. If you ever read, sometimes no time can work against you, man. There's times that like especially with reading Revocations of Andrews, if you've read the long ones, my God, no time, it feels like you're going on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And then you look and it's 20 minutes, you're like, what? How did that happen? I mean, they do create a no time field, don't they? It's a wonderful experience to have. And I've had times like that. It's beautiful. That's when you're really in your joy, really in your joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
On the time thing, when I learned a discipline called theta healing, the idea was introduced to me of collapsing time and space, or extending time and space, because time is a perception, isn't it? As it's pattern. True time is more of a perception. And we found that was a really good game to play with, collapsing time and space. And especially if you find that your window was shorter than you thought it was, that shorter than you would like with someone. If someone's late for a session or something, and you've only got half the time, but just to be mindful that you're collapsing time and space, so they will still have all their needs met, or whatever information is meant to be exchanged in that time. So just setting that intention consciously to really savor the moment as well on some of those joyous occasions, that can be really useful, because I think it is about perception.
Yeah. That makes me think of something we learned in Access, Jill. Remember, folding space, because of the connection between time and space. So let's say you're driving somewhere and you're late, so you want to be there in time. So what you actually do, you fold the space, a bit like I think what you're saying, Sue, with collapsing time or collapsing space, which then has an impact on time and gets you there in a shorter period of time.
And what a beautiful example of sovereignty.
Yeah.
Because you're not taking any notice of what the system is telling you time is. You're taking over and saying, no, I decide on my own time, thank you.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, gosh, imagine if we all put that into operation.
Beautifully said, and that's taking responsibility for the level of awareness. That's sovereignty. Very cool, yeah.
A friend of mine shared, I'm always on time for me.
Say again?
A friend of mine shared, they're always late, and I was like, you're always late, and they were like, no, I'm always on time for me.
Yes. So what else is there? What else we got, Laura? Have you got something else for sovereignty?
The only other thing that's just come up for me is sovereignty in dream time, because I don't know how many people are aware about the sacred geometry cities and how our dream time can be siphoned off by the system, and so you just get the same old sort of repetition dreams. And these sacred geometry cities, I suppose, what's one? London must be one, Bath is probably one. Yeah, okay, so New York definitely, isn't it? So the way the cities are set up,
Rome.
probably, yes, absolutely, Linda, yeah, so that your dream time energy can be siphoned for them, and you don't get the opportunity to meet with your soul family in the North Pole. So one of the things I do for practices before bed, as I think we were saying to Norman a couple of sessions ago, is, you know, I ask to go to the dreaming mind of Earth, and I ask to go and meet my soul family in the Aurora Borealis, where they are, and I ask to communicate with them. And you can do a bedtime revocation. You know, I want to communicate with them and them alone, just my ancestors. Nobody else has any access to my dream time at all. And I think that's particularly important for people who live within these big sacred geometry cities. That was another aspect of sovereignty that came up to me. I want to keep my dream time sovereign. It's mine and mine alone.
It's a huge one, Laura. It's a huge one. You know, although it comes down to the four corners, that's a huge one. Actually, I was dying to say that. It's funny that you brought it up, because I was thinking about bringing it up, dream time. You know, and that even goes into time as well. When you become a dreaming being, then time is stretched anyway. It's like you live a double life, you know. and sovereignty within, and that's where it comes down to. I don't want to say spiritual hygiene, although that is a part of it, but also, you know, sacred space and safe space. That is the fundamentals for me about sovereignty. If you don't have that sacred space, that safe space, we'll use I don't know if we can see this, but there's a web on the ceiling.
Oh,
you see that?
Look at that. Yeah. Yeah.
So we do like that. That's like a huge dream catcher. So we've got the web on the ceiling, and then all the corners are protected. And I have the salt packs. I sage the room. Like the dream time before, because we all sleep together actually in one room. It's a bit bizarre. So this room is like the most sacred room in the house. So this one is the one that gets the most form of spiritual hygiene. You know, the most amount of saging and whatnot. So it's a really important thing, dream time. Because then you get the ability to remember your dreams, and people don't understand the ability to remember your dreams is where you become multidimensional. This is where you start to see where you're creating in the dream world. You see what your spirit is actually doing. You know, and sometimes we wake up and, you know, you have an intention before you go to bed. You wake up, your intention's completely changed, and you do something, and there's a synchronistic process that says, right, now I get it. And that always comes from dream time. And there's nothing more empowering than seeing those patterns come from the dream time into the waking time. And like you said, then what you can actually do is influence your dreaming body to work on your behalf. You know, you ask it to do things for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
that's you've got that level of sovereignty, and then you're introducing your precognitive workforce, which is maybe something for another session, but it's really parts of you that go out and do work for you. And that's a very, you know, a sovereign, would you say? You have to be pretty sovereign to be able to handle a precognitive workforce.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, to do it consciously, that's for sure. That's why I said, you know, this is such a vast subject, because sovereignty can be applied. Huge. Sovereignty can be applied to every aspect of your life, seen and unseen.
Yeah.
It's just huge subject.
Yeah, can I step in there? Yeah, I don't think we realize how powerful it is. The past week, I've woken up in really bad way, stomach ache, sore legs, sore everything, and like you say, I don't think I've been sovereign in my dream time, and I haven't had the spiritual hygiene. So I've woken up feeling really not well.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
you know, it's I'm trying to find the right words here. If you're not practicing these forms of things, then you just leave yourself open for all manner of different things to affect you, you know. The Wi-Fi is one of the first ones, you know, and having the phone in your bedroom when you sleep.
Yeah.
That steals your dream world straight away. I mean, if you do neither of those two things, what I do as well is I have a pot of salt that has a few crystals in that sits by the router. And then at night when we go to bed, any mobile phones or devices are put on this salt. Even mirrors is another one. If you have mirrors, any mirrors should be covered or turned around. And so if you have the devices next to where you sleep, and then you're having that sleep, and then you jump up and you look in the mirror, this is where entity transference happens as well. It's everywhere. All these little spiritual knickknacks waiting just to mess with you.
The psychic attacks.
Absolutely. And the dream space is such a fundamental one, because you know, like you say, sometimes you just wake up and you're just incapable of doing what you need to do. If you wake up and you just feel attacked and you feel groggy and you feel down, you know, you're just not at your full potential, you know. And that's what sovereignty is, isn't it? You must be firing at your full potential, or as close to. Andrew said to me once, Matty, impeccability is key. And that's, you know, that's just, and you know, impeccability, I'm so far away from that, it's ridiculous, but it's that strive for that level of perfection, you know, in all areas of your life, seen and unseen. That's how you reclaim your sovereignty. In whichever way.
Can I chime in here, Martina?
Go for it, yeah.
Go on, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. As you're all speaking, what I'm aware of is that, you know, when you talk about dreamtime reality, it's very interesting because I'm studying about this as well as creating, not because I'm doing this, but I'm creating specific foods or drinks or whatever for this kind of stuff so people can be more aware. But I'm not saying you guys, but a lot of people, what they're doing, they're actually clogging their body, because Mark and I always, you know, you talk about it's not just the soul, it's the body as well, you know, not just the mind. But what they're doing is, you know, people bought pasta, right? All this kind of food can also clog, which is what happened to one of my clients a few days ago, clog your body. So that means you are not in the flow. You can have bad dreams, or you have alcohol that is not, you know, cleansed spiritually or whatever. But what I'm saying is that we are actually, either consciously or unconsciously, people are clogging their body. You know, like I have people, oh, I'm this and this. I said, so what did you eat? I'm not saying to become raw vegan, but we eat a bit more like, oh, okay, maybe if I eat this or I drink this, and because I created something, and you know, my husband said, what is this? He asked me, because he had like a huge awakening, or I don't even know what. And it's something that I don't want to say live or whatever, but Laura knows what it is. She already ordered some. It takes you on a journey. I have some in there. I have some fridge, but it's like, it is important what you put into your body, because what you put into your body, you can look at.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That's part of the responsibility, isn't it, that you have to yourself in the sovereignty.
It's a huge part. It's a huge part. I don't know if has anybody out there done their colonic irrigations.
Yeah.
Did you get down to the black water?
No.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've done pretty severe ones. Yeah.
I fasted. I do like fast. So I fast for 5 days and then do colonics all the way through it. And I remember the first time that I did that, and I know a blockage came out, and I've had nothing. I had nothing coming out for about 3 days. Constant enemas with clean water coming out, and then all of a sudden there was a hard lump, followed by this, you know. And I'll never forget that feeling. I think, you know, this is such a huge subject in itself, that, you know, taking back control of your body. But that feeling, even the colours went brighter in the room, and everything just went, you know, it's just, and you know, for me, that the upkeep of the gut and the foods that I eat as well, and the exercise I do, that's a huge part of claiming my sovereignty. I always know when I'm going to pee, when my foot slips, you know, or I don't take care of myself. That's a big sign.
Irrigation.
Yes. colonic irrigation, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So does anyone want to, do you want to do that? Jill, do you want us to tune in and ask a question?
Yeah, go on then.
Shall we use every one of us who wants to tune in to just say again what your issue is? And then we can...
just, I've been waking up feeling, honestly, from my calves, my legs are so sore. I can't even describe the pain in my calves, and it's in my calves and in my gut, and I wake up in such pain. I don't know what to do with myself.
Okay, cool. So let's tune into. We have your permission. Let's tune into Jill and ask a question. Okay, we're not going to put a story on her. We just want to ask her a question for whatever comes up.
Well, Jill, funny enough, you said I've had pains in my calves for the last week or so. When do you notice it? When you get up?
No, I'm still. It wakes me up.
It wakes you up. It's that bad, is it? Right. Okay.
So it's pain. It's not cramp.
No.
Are you exercising at all?
No.
And stretching?
Not as much as I should. No.
Because I find I live quite active life. I do smoke, but I train a lot, and I find on the days when I rest, that's when I get a calf cramp.
Okay.
I don't know if you're just resting way more than you averagely would.
A lot more.
You need to find a way to exercise.
Yeah.
My question would be, is there a connection to you staying at home for the first time this week, last week, without a job? Is the pain connected to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
My question is to you now, if you are willing to go there, and if you're willing to open there for your awareness, you can ask now. What is that? You can ask. Who are you? Are you mine?
I did go through the what is this? What is my body trying to tell me? What am I aware of that I'm not acknowledging? Nothing.
Okay. Let's run. Who are you being? It goes for all of us, you know, we can all do this. Who are you being when you are experiencing those intensities in your calves, in your legs?
It's all to do with fascia. That's what it is.
Let's just see who are you being? Let's see what that brings up for Jill when you're experiencing those intensities in your legs. Okay, let's take that energy and just dissolve that. That doesn't let you look, okay? So what are you being when you're experiencing those intensities in your legs? Try and uncreate all that. When are you being when you're experiencing those intensities in your calves and in your legs? Okay. And how are you being when you're experiencing those intensities and in those legs? And anything that doesn't allow you to perceive, know, be, and receive that, can we destroy and uncreate that?
Yeah.
What comes up?
I guess this all ties into the sovereignty, because clearly I'm not being sovereign and it's not my energies. So it's obviously energies from, so, but whose energy and what energy?
So as long as you know it's not yours, then that's cool already. Okay. Then
No, it's not mine. It's obviously, I'm not being, my spiritual hygiene's not the best.
Okay. So whatever is trying to infiltrate and make you feel intense and unease and not able to sleep, can we just destroy and uncreate all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then send back to sender, you know, all those energies that are trying to sort of mess with you here, entangle with you. Get rid of those.
Would it be ancestral? How does that feel that it could be ancestral, Jill?
Can I chime in? It's most definitely stress related. And the best thing to do to remove stress from the body like that is to actually do the work on the body. That's how you release it. It's to do with the fascia at the back of your legs. So, you know, to begin your own sort of ceremonial process, you know, would be a good idea to bring in some sort of spiritual hygiene. But even just simply finding some, you know, yoga poses that stretch the legs and just really taking the time and stretch and stretch and stretch and allowing all of the worry to just remove.
Because that's what Andrew was saying last time about the fascia and how the electrical charges and your emotional electrical charges get stuck in the fascia.
Yeah, it gets stored, and you have to release that physically. So you'll be able to feel it. If you do, you look online and look for calf stretches. Begin with calves, but then what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to follow the feeling all the way up your body, and you just find a pose that you can sit in and just do it, and do it a lot as well. You know, stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch.
So I guess by releasing the fascia, I'll be releasing the electrical charge and be releasing the energies. That's
right. And then if you lie on your back flat on the ground, look for the cranial sacral pulse. You'll feel it like there's like an internal flow. And so in those moments when you've stretched out a lot, then just lie down like the Shavasana kind of thing in yoga, and just feel your body, just feel the subtleties of it, you know? And then if you start to just put get like 4 crystals and put them in the corner of your room, but you want to not just grab 4 crystals and leave them there, you know, you want to every morning, every night, take them, do your prayers over them and whatnot, and put them in the sunlight, whatever you want to do, and put them in the corner, and then have some sort of out loud prayer where you say, right, I do not want anybody to influence me in my sleep, you know. But you can expand on that, obviously. That's, you know, find a powerful way and a beautiful way to say it, but definitely stretch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jill, can I speak on this?
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, just to say that I suffer quite a lot with pains in my legs, and sometimes I know I haven't been as diligent as I might be. So if you find yourself in that situation where you go, yeah, I've done it again, but your body is in pain, I swear by the Epsom salt baths that Andrew recommends, my #1 go-to, you know, a few pounds of Epsom salts in a hot bath if you can.
Okay,
that can really support.
That's a really important point, actually. Yeah. There's also one of the things that Andrew recommends is you can get like a sandwich bag, and you put a nice decent amount of pink salt in there, a couple of sage leaves and a crystal, and you tape that to your tailbone and your lower back, and that actually cleans through the cranial sacral fluid. But that allows you to remember your dreams, but also gives you a lot of protection during your sleep. But that cleaning of the cranial sacral fluid as well, that helps to start to release the fascia. But you see, you've got to remember that just because you have a pain in your calf doesn't mean that that's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
So really, it's not just taking one part and working that. You have to find a way that encompasses your entire body, that you can then get into a flow of self-care.
So what is it? The bag with salt and crystal and sage?
Yeah. So I get like a sandwich bag, and I feel, I don't know, just so it's large enough but comfortable. And then I have just a small crystal, some sage, and some silver as well. Excuse me, some silver as well, a piece of silver. Yeah, sorry, I forgot that. It's 3 S's. Okay. And just take that. Do you know what I use? I mean, it's pretty uncomfortable to take off, but I use masking tape, you know, the large masking tape. So, yeah.
Do you sleep on it?
Yeah, no, you tape it to your back. You tape it to the lower part of your back on your tailbone, actually covering your tailbone like a pack. You know, like on your back of your tailbone. You can also put one on the back of your neck as well. But even if you just start, you know, getting used to that one on your back, that will have a massive effect.
Yeah. And one on each boob.
You could put it all over you. You could, if you slept in a bath of salt, you'd sleep grand.
But you know, there's also an element of actually, are you having enough intake of salt? Because if you're depriving yourself of salt, you can also have muscle cramps. It's very often because you're not having actually enough.
It's not really cramps. It's just pain. But it's not cramp.
Okay.
My awareness says, you know exactly what this is, because we all know. And the pain is just an effect of what's going on behind this. And that's like, if you will, the origin or root of this. And that's my awareness. And all that what Matt said, our doctor of the day, of the night, the galactic doctor, it's fantastic, it works. But my awareness is that you know exactly what this is, and there might be something that you're not willing to see, or at the moment. Maybe you will be willing to see it tomorrow or the after tomorrow. But when you remove that origin or foundation or root, or however you wish to call it in your mind or your world, that's what my awareness tells me.
Okay, thank you.
Sovereignty can only be reclaimed by action, you know.
Yeah.
So there has to be an action. You can't just decide to be sovereign, you know. There always has to be an action.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on a very practical level, if you are taping you know, the salt and stuff to your body, you can actually buy micropore, which is a breathable tape that you can put on your body that maybe
more comfortable.
Might be more medical tape.
Yeah,
I'll try.
Much recommend that kind of stuff. Mine used to fall off all over the place because I move around when I sleep. I even used duct tape at one point, but then I couldn't get off in the morning.
Waxing and taping at the same time.
And one thing I didn't know in the beginning, Jill, you probably know this, is one, you need at least 30 minutes in the bath.
Yeah.
And the other thing is always shower off afterwards. Because
what happens if you don't?
Well, you're putting out toxins, so you really need to wash them off you. And just on a practical level, you get very dry skin if you don't rinse off the salt. And it's one thing I didn't realise in the beginning.
Okay, thanks.
And for people who haven't got baths and just got showers, anyone listening, you can have a salt rub. You can get jars of salt, and it makes your skin feel lovely afterwards, but you can rub that all over your body. I've done that as well, and have the shower beating down on your crown chakra for about 15 minutes or so as well.
And you can also use the salt packs directly on the pain as well. That's another good way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone. That's great advice. I'm going to try most of that tonight.
You've got a busy evening, you better get off.
Yeah.
So is there anywhere else we want to go with this? Martina, have you got anything to add? Anyone else? Anything to pursue?
Well, I would just like to say thank you very much for your opening invocation. It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
And
thanks,
I'm using that. And also, I was on my phone trying to get by the fire to show you, but I built a really beautiful sacred fire, which is still burning out there tonight. So it was Beltane, wasn't it, recently? So this is the third Beltane fire. And I just thought it might be really lovely to have that going. So there is a beautiful fire that's been listening to all our invocations tonight and to the wisdom. So I'm sure that our prayers are going to be heard by that fire. I just wanted to let you know because I wasn't able. I think I posted a few photos earlier, so in the chat you might see the photos. There was a great big, humongous hunk of wood that I carried on my shoulders from the park earlier. And it was quite interesting because as I was walking along the park in quite a small way, walking my dog, were carrying this big hunk of big, humongous log thing on my shoulder. A woman said, "What is that?" "Oh, I thought it was an owl." I was like, "Okay, I'll take that. Thank you very much. I don't think you realise your channel in there, but yeah, we'll put it on the fire system for our sovereignty." So I didn't know. I didn't know tonight that we were talking on sovereignty. I wasn't aware of the subject matter. So it was just really lovely. That was all set up for our sovereignty this evening. So just wanted to share that with you all, because you didn't really get to participate because my connection wasn't good enough to sit by the fire with you tonight.
I think it's quite auspicious that somebody saw an owl over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Go for all of us. It was for us tonight, and for for all our beloveds who are on the same path. Really, I think it is a time to be courageous and to be powerful. And thank you for everyone's contributions tonight. I do see that it's a step-by-step, brick-by-brick kind of process of disentanglement and awareness and knowing ourselves. And yeah, I think it's all to do with awareness and education as well. So thank you for all the roles that you play and for this, for this circle. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Lovely. Any more last words from anyone? Anybody want to come in with anything? Anybody got anything they'd like us to be looking at in the next few weeks? Any subject you'd like us to cover, to explore?
Especially those that are new to it. I mean, we could chinwag for hours and hours and hours, couldn't we? I'd like to know what people would like to know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Let's talk about how to win the lottery. No, if you listen to GH 2.0, Andrew was I was listening it today, and Andrew was joking about that. The people always want to know how to win the lottery.
All know their purpose. Yeah.
Let's create some concoction and algorithms.
I'll tell you what, really off topic here. Did any of you guys catch Andrew's show the other day, where the English gentleman came on and he asked what his purpose was?
Yes.
And then it turned out he was an AI scientist.
I know.
Oh,
it was remarkable.
And remember, Matt, what I said to you. So what happened on that day? On that day, before the show came on, I created something because I was listening to Andrew and Andre, and they were talking about the AIs. And I'm more of a creator rather than technology thing. But what I created the dish, because my awareness is to create a dish for the world for these AIs. So I did. And we ate it. It was like amazing. But this is what I said to you earlier when I said sovereignty and freedom. So when you free something in you, that has a domino effect in the whole world. Mm-hmm. So this guy comes on and says, oh, wow, I'm going to do this. So I'm not only creating for the person face to face, but for the world. And we can all do that. So when you
I found it amazing, Andrea, especially when he said to him, he was talking about creating an AI that you can attune the Reiki symbols to. and then
exactly what I did to my phone. Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
Best call in a long time.
Yeah.
Creating in no time. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Laura Martina, you mentioned the replications Andrew's got on his website, and Matty said that they can be 20 minutes long. Can you recommend just one of those? Any one in particular?
Norman, absolutely, Norman. If you go onto Andrew's website, and there's a section called Insights. You go onto the Insights section, and then the one that I said about 20 minutes long. Excuse me, there are some that are over an hour, but these are the long advanced ones. But the first primary ones are not like that at all. They just take 5-6 minutes to read out. And so it's the banking, the media, revocation for feminine, masculine, and another one, I think. And they're quite short, but what it does is it shows you the structure of how to open up the sacred space through opening what he calls a spiritual court of equity, and then how to call in the sacred connections like the ancestors and so forth. And then the linguistics that he uses, if you go over it a few times, you do it cyclically, you begin to get the different layers at which he speaks and writes at. And it really explains to you how to properly empower yourself and the kinds of things that you really need to empower yourself from in a method that is, as he terms, colloquial, but also to the point. They're masterpieces, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Yeah, they are. So, if there's nothing else, if you're all up for meeting again next Wednesday,
Yeah.
5 p.m. time and no time. So, thank you everybody for your contributions. I can't see Linda, maybe she's gone, but thanks, Linda.
No, I'm here, and I wanted to say thank you to everybody for today. It was lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
See you
next
Take care. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks.
Eye consciousness.
now, and then I will send it out. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.